Right?
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today for this Board of Selectmen Candidate Forum sponsored by the Council on Aging. My name is Colleen Thompson. I'm the Director of Elder Affairs and I'll be the moderator. For your information, this forum is being recorded for presentation on public access TV, on the Area 58 website, and on YouTube. Our plan today is for each candidate to answer 3 questions that they have previously been given. They'll be given 3 minutes for each answer, and following this phase, we will open it up to your questions. Excuse me, I know I don't need to say this, but we expect the candidates and all of you to be polite and kind, but, solicit the answers you want. Let's see. For those who might not know, the 2 candidates are incumbent Christine Joy and challenger David Smith. I've already spoken to the candidates to determine who will go first, and Christine won the number pick. So let's go ahead and get started. And when you ask your questions at the end, please use the microphone so it gets recorded for the television best. Please state your name and your address. All right, let's start. Christine, why do you feel that you are the best candidate for the job? What do you offer that will make a difference? And why should you stay on the board?
All right. Thank you, Colleen. I am an experienced and fiscally conservative selectman. I've been doing this a long time. I love the town. I love the job of serving on the Board of Selectmen. I'm proud of our many accomplishments in town government, our police, fire, and highway departments. We've put together an excellent team of managers who are leading their departments and doing really great work for the town. So I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. Our community involvement, our interdepartmental communication and collaboration are at an all-time high, which is extremely rewarding. So we're firing on all cylinders. I feel like we're really focused on serving the community, and we've come together really in a very nice way. For me, I feel like being on the Board of Selectmen is like running a business, and you're the stakeholders. My job, I'll give you a little insight into the way that I manage, and my personal mantra has always been, the town comes first. So that is always and without exception. It has been my battle cry as we go through difficult times, as I have to make decisions that cause me personal angst, because this is about the town and doing the right thing for the town. So it always helps me to stay on course and finish the task, whatever we need to do. I think as selectmen, we have an obligation to minimize our risk and potential for liability. This is done through our actions and our decisions. A big way this is done is through professionalization. And we talk about this all the time, but why is professionalization important? It's important because we get qualified, competent candidates who are, or who've become employees then, and are leading their departments, and then they want to bring in qualified and competent people who know the jobs as well, so that they can be successful in the town, and that most of them want to be valued members of our community. Another benefit of professionalization is it establishes a guideline for work product, what is and isn't acceptable, and what is and isn't acceptable in conduct. So it really kind of sets the baseline as to how we're going to treat each other, what we're going to do in our jobs, and it just clarifies all the expectations. We've created a lot of job descriptions which have helped in the professionalization process too, so people know what their job is and what's expected of them. So another part of this is the personnel management. And I find this to be the most challenging part of the job. This is managing the people that work for the town. The fun part is when we fill key management positions with the best candidate who meets the needs of the town. You want me to keep going?
No, you can wrap it up first.
Okay, so I'll wrap it up. All right, hardest part is when we have to deal with people who aren't professional and who do pose a risk to the town. It's part of the job. I always keep the focus on what's the best interest of the town. Last thing is thoughtful decision-making, always striving to make the right decision the first time around, gathering bylaws, MGLs, policies, procedures, whatever you need to make the right decision so that the decision is clear, concise, defensible, and helps reduce the potential for legal challenges.
Thank you. You can have the same extra time if we need it.
Okay.
What do you feel? Why do you feel you are the best candidate? What do you offer that will make a difference? And why should you replace Christine on the board?
Thank you, Colleen. To start off, obviously I'm a newcomer to this, but not a newcomer to the town. I'm the son of a World War II veteran and POW. So there's where my heart comes from, civic service, which I've been involved in basically since 1988 when I started off in the Sandwich Police Department. And I've been with the Plympton Police Department since 2004 and will be retiring next month. It's been the most rewarding part of my career is to work at the school, which I've been involved with that for 13 years. And during that time of being in the school, we've enhanced the security of the school. We went far beyond DARE. I was hired to be a DARE officer. And when I arrived in that school and had my two stepdaughters in that school, and looking around it, I saw a lot of different discrepancies as far as the safety in that school and took it on as a big part of my job, even though it wasn't part of my job description. As we discussed about professionalization, professionalization really can come from within. You're looking for somebody who actually has done things and has stood out above the crowd. And what we did in partnership with the principal, Peter Veneto, fantastic principal, we can't lose him. We worked over those 13 years to make this one of the most secure schools in the South Shore. Again, this was self-initiated and was also something we worked together on over the years. And again, it's a constant process. Every single year, every single day when I go in there, I spend about an hour with the principal and we go over safety concerns and different issues that come up within the school. I myself have been in the town since 2000, but my family has been involved in the town and has been in the town since 1987. So I feel I'm very familiar with the town. Quite a few of you people I see out in the audience, a lot of people I recognize, a lot of people I've interacted with over the years. Another part of my duties was firearms licensing officer, in which case I met with a lot of people. And I also at that time had a good ear to the people who I talked to, and they often concerned things to me as far as what different interests or concerns there were in the town. Obviously, we're a very small town, one of the smallest. You know, we only in 24 years this August, for me, we've never gone over 3,000 residents. But yet, we have one of the highest tax rates in the South Shore. So, in my view, where I'm bringing this and what I bring to the table is a set of fresh eyes. I've also been a business owner for the last 30 years. As a police officer, I only work part-time, but I never took that as a part-time duty. And I think my record speaks for itself in that respect. So, as a business owner, and I own a karate school, it's client-based. During COVID was one of the hardest times we ever had in that industry. Most karate schools either lost half of their students or they just threw their hands up and closed it. And that was it. I took a different turn. I tried to have as much creativity as possible and come up with different alternate solutions and rode the tide because I had a family to support and also our town as far as keeping myself in town help out. And as far as, if I am allowed the few more seconds here, as far as why I feel on the replacing, I don't know whether that's the best of wordings. I think it's kind of harsh, but I believe competition is good. I think that having competition, regardless of the outcome, is a good thing. Look at people around the room. Look at the group we have here today. Obviously, we've stirred up some interest with what's going on here. And one of my goals in doing this is to get more interaction from the community in what we do here and to stand up for our very unique New England town. Thank you, Colleen.
All right. And let's start with Dana on this question.
Okay.
What are your top 3 priorities for the town? What are the most important issues we face? And what are your ideas for solving the problem?
Well, one of the main priorities we have is a new fire station. It's not a want, it's a need. I mean, anyone that knows anything about this, and I've worked with the fire side for years now, knows that it has never been built for that. That building was never purposed for what it is being used for now. It is way beyond what it is. We're in a repurposed school right now. I mean, this is what Plympton has been. However, to go forward for the future, we need to have a safe and functional fire department and a fire station that matches that. Right now, there's about 6 inches of water running in a ductwork inside there. There's not proper exhausting and so forth. I mean, there are a lot of health issues that are also with that building. And that concerns me. It has always concerned me. The fire side needs more equipment. And the fire station is definitely something we need to do. Obviously, it is a huge undertaking. We just had a police station not too a few years ago, which we were able to stay pretty much on budget. I know that Chief Dillon worked on it very diligently to make sure that that happened. And I would expect to work on that same diligence to make this happen. We have to make it realistic and within our means, but it does have to happen. Another priority, the fact that that I've lived in town for almost 24 years, and we've never exceeded 3,000 residents in that amount of time, but yet we have this huge tax burden and an ever-growing budget, is something that needs to be dealt with as well. You know, we're a very small town, and I would love to see that continue. One of the things that I miss, honestly, personally and professionally, was having Santa on the green. I always loved that. I mean, I understand in COVID we started doing the fire trucks, the thing, but that was so like a Currier and Ives thing that it was just awesome. I love doing that. And plus, I got to tell the kids that I was a bodyguard for Santa, so, you know, come on. You know, that's pretty cool. So as far as priorities go, how to answer those things, we need to have a better economic development plan for the town as far as how we handle businesses and how we are comfortable in actually encouraging businesses to flourish. And when I say flourish, that doesn't mean put in a BJ's or put in a Costco. We're talking about buildings and also businesses that exist right now, give them the help that they need, the support that they need, know that the town is behind them, and also to expand their businesses if needed and where necessary, but in a fiscally responsible way for the town, but also in a realistic town way, in the sense that this isn't a huge bustling town. I came from the town of Sandwich. For 13 years, I was a resident there, and prior to that, I grew up there. I grew up in Braintree, but I also had dual citizenship. And in that town of Sandwich, that was actually a beautiful town, and they've done a lot with their economic development plan, getting things like medical and IT to come into the town. High dollar amounts, but low impact to the town. So my proposals for that would be on that basis, trying to get something more along those lines to be attracted to the town. And again, not getting big box stores. So obviously we can't do that. We're not set up for that, and geographically we're not set up for that. We have a lot of wetlands in town.
All right, thank you. And I'll repeat the questions.
Thank you.
What are your top 3 priorities for the town? What are the most important issues we face? And what are your ideas for solving the problems?
I think that I agree with what Dana said about fiscal conservatism. That's something that I've always prided myself on. It's I think it would be good to have a discussion about where the tax rate comes from, because I think that there's some confusion as to how that is set, and that would be a good topic, possibly even in this forum. I think that we need to continue looking at ways to keep it affordable to live in Plympton. We need to continue with grants. I think we do an amazing job with grants. I wanted to get a total that I could share with you as to what we have secured in grants for this year. I don't have that number. I have a partial number, but a big part of it was for what we got for Turkey Swamp, which I think we've got, the town accountant had like $550,000 in grants, but I know it's much higher than that because of, I know the police department has brought in more, and I know our department, Board of Selectmen, has brought in a lot more as well. So that is going to be an important part of financing a fire station and other needs for the town. I agree that that is a priority. We've been pushing this off for so long. I think the time has come when we finally have to address it. We're going to have to figure out a way that we can do it that is affordable. And hopefully, as I stated, maybe get some grants from the USDA or some other federal or state sources to help us pay for this. I think that we need to find ways to help our seniors stay in town with incentive programs. I don't know what that would look like. I'd like to see if anybody else is doing it first and then kind of glean whatever they've done and see what we could do here. I think we need to find ways to create affordable housing. There are a lot of people that are struggling. What we had asked for for in our housing production plan, I was part of that committee, and there are people out here in the audience that were as well, was we wanted affordable housing with a preference for local seniors and local veterans. So that is something that I would want to continue to work for, is looking for ways to get affordable housing, because I'd like people that have spent their whole lives in Plympton, living in this town we all love, to be able to stay here as they get older. And then working to protect our natural resources. We have a beautiful rural community, and I think we need to continue what we've been doing. I think we've done a nice job, but there's still work to do.
Thank you, Christine. And back to Christine starting. Let's see. Professional services were engaged more than 10 years ago to review the town building needs, particularly the public safety sector buildings. Mm-hmm. Town residents, as part of various committees, have been discussing and reviewing this need for longer than those 10 years. We were able to build a Plympton-appropriate police station under budget, and now the need for a new fire station has become more pressing. As a candidate for selectman, do you support the construction of a new fire station, and could you give us your thoughts that led to your opinion on that?
Sure. I do support a new fire station. I've been attending the meetings held by the public safety or the town properties building committee, town properties committee, where they've talked about other town projects and this project, and it's become clear that renovation is not an option. That the amount of renovation that is needed on the fire station is greater than 50%, which would trigger an entire the whole project, the whole station would have to be reworked with wiring and brought up to code, building code. So what would happen is if we were to renovate, we would put on a couple of new bays, and then the 50% would be triggered, and then whoever we have as a contractor is going to tear down the existing structure and just put up another building right over it, which doesn't solve our space issues, doesn't solve the issues with safety, having the fire department peeling out of here when we've got kids here playing baseball. So it's, I think we need to look at a new location for the fire station, and I support what the property committee has come up with their location, with the project, and then repurposing the building for a community center as well, which really wouldn't require any additional money from the get-go. We could certainly budget and address things as need be, but it wouldn't be any financial impact of turning that into a senior and community center, which could be used by the library and all other groups through town. I'm hoping that we can find money to help us pay for that, and that's something that I've been working on, and I will continue to work towards that, because it needs to be something we can afford. But I think the time has come where we finally have to address it.
Thank you. And I'm not going to read my whole preamble, but as a candidate for selectman, do you support the construction of a new fire station, and give us our thoughts that led you to that conclusion?
Well, without being too redundant, I think I already kind of stated my case on that one as far as that goes. I do also support the idea, which has been thrown around, as far as repurposing that building instead of tearing it down. It is Plympton, so we do need to be fiscally responsible. If that's something that's within our means to do, I think it is a great use of that building instead of just totally demolishing it and putting it out to pasture, so to speak. As far as parking in that parking lot and also having to respond from calls and so forth, Mr. Joy is absolutely correct on this. It's not really the best situation. But again, the building was built in the 1970s. It was a much smaller town. It's, didn't have the same call volume, so things have changed over the years, and that's what you have to do, is adapt with the times. And hopefully the idea with building a new building would be with eyes towards the future. Now, does that mean it has to be this huge, massive thing saying, okay, in, say 50 years, we're going to have 80, fire department personnel, everything else? No, but the idea would be is to actually have it, the potential to expand property-wise, the physical, setup of the building itself, to be able to expand in the future if need be, and also have that as part of the plan, I would hope, as part of the plan in designing the building, that there's actually room for expansion should there be the need later on. Because then we would be in the same boat for who we hand this over to. You know, and I mentioned about as far as this kind of goes a little off topic, but not the same, but it is kind of the same. I mean, if we plan for the future, this is what we're doing right now. We're trying to think about how this town is going to look in 50 years. You know, how this town is going to be for my two daughters, also everybody else's. You know, I see some of my little guys out here, including my little cowboy over there, Jacob. So, you know, we're looking at this as someplace where we're going to continue on, then the fire department is definitely a priority. You know, we already have the police station, and that came in under budget, which was fantastic. Fire department, a little different needs and larger vehicles that actually have to be housed inside. Some of the vehicles right now are actually rotting because they're just sitting and they don't get used all the time. The undercarriages are exposed to the elements, and that means our investment in those vehicles is going downhill. Police side, it's a little different. The vehicles are used a lot more. Some of these vehicles, like the brush breaker that sits out in the front of the fire department, if it's not covered up, it's not used all the time. Thankfully, we don't have a lot of brush fires, but in that respect, it's not being protected, and it needs to be. And that's an investment that needs to be taken care of. So these are some of my concerns with the fire department and how that has to be actually addressed.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to open it up to the audience. And as I said, please use the microphone. Please state your name and your address.
Arthur Blomquist, 96 Lake Street. Danny, you mentioned the tax rates are high. I think we all agree taxes are pretty high in town. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, the Halifax is actually higher than we are, and Kingston's less, and Duxbury's even less than that. If we need a new fire station, what's your plan to pay for that without increasing taxes?
Well, basically, we talked about the grants. We talked about getting loans. The unfortunate part of this is the fact that loans right now are at a higher interest rate. So that does cause a problem with that. One of the things that you have to look at is this is not, like I said, this is not a want. It's a need. We need to have it done. So as far as taxes go, we are indebted as far as taxes. But one of the things is being fiscally responsible and moving monies around to be more practical as to where they need to be. You know, there have to be some cuts and there have to be budgeting concerns in order to make it happen. Then that's something that has to be looked at. You know, I think everybody in this room can agree that when they go to the grocery store, you're not necessarily filling up the cart quite the same anymore. So when we look at a budget, I would think that we would have to look at that as well. You know, and in order to be realistic, those are some of the things that would have to be looked at. You know, moving money around, but also moving budgets around, and also kind of looking at things in a more open eyes towards it.
Do you want the same question answered by Christine?
Yeah, Christine, please.
Okay, sure. I've been doing some research, and I have found a potential for this is so super preliminary, but there may be an opportunity for a low-interest loan from the USDA. There's also, and this is their rural division, because we're under 5,000 people, that there's some grant opportunities. This has come around before, years ago, where the USDA issued grants and low-interest loans for public safety buildings. There's all sorts of things that are tied into this. We wouldn't necessarily meet the median income portion of this, but we do definitely meet the population. And I would just need to look at it further and trying to find other sources and grants, working with our state reps, working with anybody that will talk to us. I know there was a federal bill about subsidizing the the building of fire stations. I think it failed. It never went anywhere in the sessions. So, you know, maybe reaching out to our federal reps too and seeing if they could bring that back and if there was any chance of some federal money as well. So just trying to find other sources to help fund this so that the tax impact is as minimal to the residents as possible.
Thank you. Would you just hand it to Dominique?
Oh, thank you. Dominique Sampson, 2 Ring Road. I, thank God, no longer have children in schools, so we don't know you in that capacity. But I am interested to understand what your level of involvement is in Plympton government. for instance, I don't know, I haven't seen you. Do you regularly go to town meetings? Are you able to attend the many open meetings that are open to the public for different board committees? For instance, the Properties Committee, things like that?
I have not recently, ma'am, but in the past I have. As far as my involvement in the town government, being involved with the police department and doing what I've done, excuse me, with the school system, and also being involved with how that runs and the inner workings of how the town actually works, you know, being a town employee and a municipal employee. So as far as all those types of, you know, interactions and being a town resident and seeing that warrant that was being mailed out on a regular basis and going through that and being able to see what goes on as far as that goes. As far as going to the meetings themselves, yes, I have been at the meetings in the past, but I will admit that I have not been there recently. But also with my commitments to other things, those are going to free up very soon because of the fact of me retiring from the police department. So I can change my gears towards something more with this. So.
Do you have a follow? Right behind you.
No, I'm okay. Behind me. There you go.
Hi, Sue Joyce, 6 Brook Street. I've heard discussion about grants, which is always great, and discussions about budget amendments on expenses that are already currently committed to and present. I'm wondering, grants are an unknown, of course, and so my question is more geared to what in your thoughts are and what types of budget cuts might be targeted to provide more monies for the fire station and other needs. I understand the schools down the road may also present future needs, etc. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are in terms of that.
And to whom are you directing that question?
Both candidates. We can start however you like.
Okay. All right. So we have a pretty tight budget, and that wouldn't be something I would be looking to cut to fund a fire station. The decision lies with the town, as with any financial decisions. You vote at town meeting, you give us our marching orders, you tell us what our budgets are, we have to live within our budgets. If we were to decide to fund the fire station, it's a town decision. And we would need to decide as a town whether or not we were willing to pay the additional taxes for it. My guess it would be probably a debt exclusion, where it's going to be for a limited amount of time rather than adding to our override or the levy. So it would be for a limited amount of time that we'd be willing to pay extra taxes to pay for that fire station. So I think that's that would be the way that I would recommend doing it.
Thank you. And you, sir?
So basically, as far as anything, what I'm saying about budget cuts, I probably misspoke as far as saying a cut, but looking at how budgets are managed is more of a better way of looking at it, and how budgeting going forward. Obviously, once, as she just mentioned, once a budget is set, it's set. But as we move forward as a town, we should really be more fiscally looking at some of these things. And I think in town meetings and so forth, and like I said, the warrant, when it's mailed out to everybody in town, that's putting it out to everybody. And you can go through it and look at what, these monies are, what's available, how it's done, what's being proposed to change. It's actually a wealth of information. So on that respect, when you're looking at it, to go to those town meetings and make those decisions and look at how those budgets are decided and ask questions of how they're decided and where those monies are going towards, and that's really where I'm going. So I apologize if I misspoke by saying cuts. This is my first foray into this and speaking in front of you folks. And
well, without understanding exactly how all of it works all the time, I mean, I know personally all of us have to make cuts sometimes.
Correct.
Is what you're saying that the town budget can't be cut?
I'm not saying it can't be cut. I'm just saying that it has to be looked at.
Okay.
And maybe have a little bit more of a focal point on it, different eyes on it to see where that is, because to be realistic, we don't want to raise taxes. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next question.
Got you, Chief. Steve Silva, 24 Pope's Farm. One is an observational comment, if I may, and then we'll follow this up with a question. Okay. So, Christine, you mentioned about the grants, specifically you talked about USDA grant, and so what you know we've gone through this many times with that grant, and you are absolutely correct.
But
that we probably will not meet the main income. Never hurts to give up, of course. It depends on what we're defined as, which we are defined as Greater Boston, which puts us in a bit of a problem. So grants, I commend you for beating the bushes on that, but however, you've been a selectman for a long time, and you've, from what I can tell, done a fine job. So my question is, after all these years, can you give me 2, maybe 3 tops, regrets that you have on any decisions either you personally made or the board itself made that hindsight being 2020 could have gone differently?
Okay. I do have a couple of regrets. But I think that the outcome ended up being where it needed to be. And years ago, we were looking at putting a roundabout at where the traffic light is. I would have loved to have had a roundabout there rather than the traffic light. But public safety did not want a roundabout there. They thought that there wouldn't be enough room for them to navigate the circumference with emergency vehicles. So, that's the way we needed to go. I also was very concerned that the people who lived there would have lost a lot of their front yards. And it just was, I would have loved if we could have found a way to do it. It just didn't work. And I think now we've got very functional lights that really work great for public safety. And then my second regret would be that I wasn't able to convince my counterparts years ago, I think back in 2002, that the water settlement wasn't in our best interest. A big takeaway from me has been that the insurance companies aren't looking out for the best interests of the town. They're looking out for the best interests of themselves. So I was a new selectman at the time. I wasn't as savvy at that point, and I felt that is a regret that I wasn't able to convince my 2 counterparts that the settlement agreement to sign that and allow the pumping of water was not in our best interest, that it was clearly mining and not farming. But that is a regret that I still live with today.
Can I just do a quick follow-up?
Follow-up, sure.
So that's pretty stellar, really, when you think about it. I mean, the only regret is a traffic light, and then, of course, the water. So if you could just refresh my memory, if you wouldn't mind, and then I'll turn the microphone over to whoever. You said you weren't able to convince your counterparts on the board of what you now would do differently and think is a more equitable settlement. What was your vote on that?
I voted against the settlement. I was the only person that voted against the settlement agreement. Mm-hmm. And I would have gone the distance. I think that we were right. It was not farming, it was mining. And
the courts ruled what they ruled.
Yeah,
okay.
And I just think we should have gone the distance with that one.
Okay, thank you.
Next question?
I shut the switch off on that.
Thank you.
Hi, Vicki Alberti, 162 Main Street. And one of my big concerns for the town is looking towards the future, preserving what we have. We are so based on our water supply, and there are so many threats to it right now. As a member of the Open Space Committee, we have been well supported for our efforts to protect our water supply and our open spaces. And Ms. Joy has been helpful with that and supportive. I was just wondering how much support you feel that environmental concerns should have on our overall town concerns.
Absolutely. We are a very rural town, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of the town that actually is rural by itself and cannot be built upon, and we need to keep that. As far as what goes into our water, I mean, you can't argue that point. You know, having lived in town for 24 years and having been around in town because of family since 1987, I mean, sulfur smell, I mean, we even have it at the police department. Okay, we have organic iron in the water, we have manganese in the water. It's a very hard water because of the nature of what it is. I mean, I live on Upland Road, which is kind of low, right? I mean, you can call it upland, but it's low. We have a lot of low land in this town that is wetland protected. Open space, and to provide for the aquifers and to provide for that infiltration through the swamps and the bogs and so forth, and also our Carberry bogs as well. And having, you know, those spaces open, but also being responsible on the chemicals that they use in those and being watched and oversought as far as the town goes is a concern as well. And I do agree that that needs to be looked at, but these are parts of what our town makes unique, you know. I suspect that part of what your question is, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is about economic development. My view on economic development is, like I said, and I will restate, is that it is for small businesses and not large businesses. We already have a large business with Cisco. We have some larger businesses, or a little bit smaller, but right next door to them. And in that respect, I'm not encouraging that type of business to come in here. Like I said, I love Santa on the Green, you know, the downtown area. I mean, we need to revitalize some of that area and so forth, but also to support the businesses that are already here. Give them what they need to help to build our tax base, because that's going to help us as well. You know, when we start talking about taxes, if we're going to foot the burden as all as just the residents, it's going to be a heavy burden to handle on our own. And we really need to have help from other businesses. And think about it. Those businesses come to our town. They get the benefits of the town. We should get the benefits of having them as businesses. You know, we're not going to rake them over the coals, but obviously we have to draw from some of that revenue that can be tapped into and encourage businesses, you know, and make it friendly for them to be here, you know, and with the nature of our town. And as I mentioned before with Sandwich, their economic development plan was based upon the fact of having community involvement. It's not just a select board doing it. It's not just having anybody in boards and so forth and the government doing it. It's also involving the citizenry and the residents and saying, okay, this is what we want. And in the case of Sandwich, their example was to attract medical and IT. So a small impact to the town as far as parking and driving and so forth. But, you know, I mean, a great idea would probably be to have an urgent care be put into in one part of the town. You know? And we do have some properties in town where we could possibly make that happen. It's an idea. It's not something that, you know, is set in stone, and yes, we must have that. But that type of a facility would actually provide us with a service and would also provide us revenue, but wouldn't put a heavy burden on the town itself.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, actually I do. So listening to both of you, you both seem to be pretty much on the same page for what the town needs and what your feelings for the town. So Ms. Joy is experienced. What would set you above her if we need to make a choice? Since I'm listening to both of you say similar things, which doesn't make our decision-making any easier.
Understood. Well, one of the things I see in that respect is that it's good that we are the community of Plympton, right? I mean, as somebody had mentioned earlier when we were talking before this whole thing started, that at the end of the day, we are Plympton. So the fact that we actually have similar views is good, that it's not that divisively, you know, changed, that this is the way it should be versus the other way and so forth. What I would bring to the table is just the fact of being a fresh face towards it. You know, I would be building relationships with maybe different people within the community, within, you know, the government and so forth. And also bringing to it a fresh face by being a small business owner. You know, it's a little different working for somebody than working for yourself and having to make sacrifices, having to show up every day. And on top of that, I actually own the property where I have my business. So it adds different things and different challenges to it that the normal person wouldn't necessarily, if they're just punching a clock, come in and go out. You know, I need to worry about property maintenance. I need to worry about property taxes. I have to see what the, you know, actual town, my business happens to be in Middleborough, what that is going to be impacting me as far as what their rates are and so forth, and plan for the future. and see where that goes. So my view would be is coming in from a different set of eyes and not being part of, the crew that has been here, basically. And for me to get on the crew, so to speak, for lack of a better term, try to make it, so that's kind of where I come from.
Thank you. Christine, do you want to add anything to those questions?
Sure. I think I've demonstrated that I'm a proven leader. I have been fighting for this town the whole time I've been on the Board of Selectmen. I'm not one to back away from a fight. A lot of times I'm the solo, fighting, standing alone, and that's okay because the town comes first for me, always, always. And I can take some beatings on your behalf if I feel like I'm doing the right thing. So it's having that mantra that the town comes first has always just given me the strength to do what I need to do. So I would just continue doing that. I think experience is important. It's I think Dana is a great guy, and he's done an amazing job with DARE, and I think he's a really good person. But I think that that I'm a better choice because of my I have a wide variety of experience. Been doing this a long time. I'm savvy. I'm a business person as well, and I just think that at this time it's better to have seasoned leadership. We've got some really tough choices ahead of us, and people that know the ropes and are able to maybe knock some heads together to get things done and to try to find some money for the town of Plympton. And I just think that at this point that I'm a better choice.
Thank you, Christine.
Good morning. I want to address everybody here. I just want to know if you know.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Nancy Curtin from 88 Upland Road here in Plympton. I've been here since '87. I'm going to address you, Christine, if it's okay. And this is not anything to do with the forum as such. I just want to know if you know or were aware of the passing of former Constable David Batchelder.
No, I was not aware of that.
Okay, he passed away 2 weeks ago. I had a long conversation with Jerry, and she's stunned and devastated, to be honest with you people. I think that she would probably appreciate some type of acknowledgement in the form of a sympathy card or something. You all know that, you've all known David, let me put it that way, most of you that have been here for a while. He was a former constable, as well as my husband, David Smith, at the same time. And he was also very instrumental in helping me when I was on the Board of Health.
Thank you. I do appreciate this, but
Okay, all right.
let's move the forum along.
Okay, I'm sorry. So anyway, that's my informality. Christine, I went on the website for the agenda of the Selectmen Board meeting minutes. The last record shows back in March of 2024.
Okay.
What happened to April and currently May? Can you?
Sure. We get those to the town clerk's office, and they upload them. So we are current with all of our meeting minutes, and they have all gone to the town clerk's office.
Okay,
so then updates them to the website.
Okay, so a month has gone by and there's no acknowledgement of the March or April.
We can talk to them and ask them to get all the minutes up.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. That's it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both.
Sorry, tripping here.
Christine, one question.
Who are you?
In the little paper.
Colleen,
Oh,
please.
Colleen Moran, 11 Granville Baker Way. In the little paper, Colleen had mentioned the vetting process for the police and fire departments. Could you tell me what that process was?
The vetting process?
The process of which you go through to get the,
To appoint people?
To appoint
Sure,
people.
sure. So what we do is, and this is a relatively new thing that we've done. We actually started it with Matt Clancy, and we've done it with all of the key management positions going forward, is we hired a consultant. The consultant then puts out an advertisement that we work with them on that specifies what we're looking for specifically with the town administrator's role, police chief, fire chief. I mean, those are the main ones. So the consultant then has all of these professional affiliations where they put this out. And we're able to do really a nationwide search to fill these positions. So the consultant then gets back all of the resumes from the interested parties. In the meantime, we have formed a committee of residents who work with the consultant that go through and screen these. So together they go through all of the resumes. It's pretty extensive. Some of them are from all over the place with a wide variety of experience. So what they do is they narrow it down. I think I don't know if you try to get it down to like 10 or 12. And then what they do is they set up interviews with these 10 or 12 individuals that they want to meet. So they bring them in, with the consultant, they interview all of these applicants, and they pare the list down to a couple, 2 or 3, to bring to the Board of Selectmen for interviews in open session that are always advertised, that any resident can attend. So we get the finalists, we interview the finalists, and then we make a decision. So it's a lengthy process with starting, it could be like maybe 3 months, 3-4 months to complete the whole process of advertising the position, getting the applications back, screening them, interviewing, and then the final interview and appointment. So that's the process. Next question?
Yep. Hi, folks. I'm Kim Russo. I live 140 Palmer Road. And I think this question, Mr. Smith, hello, I haven't met you before, is for you first, and then for Christine to follow up. I think that you had said, Mr. Smith, that you haven't been a part of town government, other than being a policeman, which is great, but very different from the people who follow the laws or bylaws, these kind of things, and the people that make them. So because of that, I'm wondering if you are familiar with our new bylaws that have been updated quite a bit in the last 4 years, 3-4 years. And then specifically the fact that we have a single tax rate here in town, which businesses don't really affect a lot. And those are state mandated procedures. And there's a lot of other state mandated things that our town has to do that we as citizens can look at and say, oh, I don't like that. We want to change it. You can change it, but you usually want to change it by starting grassroots, going through all the channels to the state and back, and then implementing them in your town. I know Christine's been doing this 20 years. I've seen her do it. Could you tell us specifically how you would do that, and specifically which of the decisions on those matters the Board of Selectmen has made recently that you would do differently? Big, long question.
Thank you, Mrs. Russo.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
So obviously, like I said, and this is to be expected as far as somebody coming in as a rookie to this whole situation, which is what I would be. Also, as I noticed earlier, incumbent here was also saying that she was a rookie when she came in too. So you have to start somewhere. So realistically, saying that you come in with a decks running from somewhere else, at some point you started somewhere. And that's where I'd be going. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it is not simply just being a police officer, it's my civic duty. And that's why I did do this prior to even being in Plympton, and have done it for many, many years. And in fact, actually have my degree in criminal justice. So as far as anything, as far as the way things are done and the tax rate, and yes, I am familiar with the fact that years ago it was made where both the residential and the commercial tax rate are the same. In Middleborough, it's not. It's a point higher, which I know from being in business there. So as far as that goes, not raising taxes on the revenues of people who own businesses, as I know that you do. So it's a view of trying to be more friendly towards businesses and encouraging businesses. It's not saying that you're trying to go to the same well and expect that you're going to get more water. You know, we're not looking at that, and that's not how I'd be looking at this. I'm looking at trying to encourage the right businesses for the town in order to go forward. And obviously, bylaws are always going to be changed. There's always going to be things that are issues that come up. So it's going to be a fluid situation as far as bylaws go. So when we talk about businesses, they're going to influence that as well. Because as we bring new businesses in, we just had a huge bylaw about parking and parking for businesses and so forth. The amount of parking spaces, how things are done. One of the things that happens in the town of Plympton, many of the roads are outdated. You know, for modern vehicles, some of the roads, like Ring Road going towards the transfer station, there's a particular corner there that is very, very narrow. So bylaws are there for those reasons in the aspect of trying to actually address situations like that. So I do understand with the decision on parking and off-street parking, on-street parking. Obviously, when we had Sawchuck Farm come in and start to develop to what it is now, there were issues with people parking in the street, and then that was dealt with as a town. And this is how we have to deal with it. It's we the people. You know, we have to actually make those decisions and look at that. The benefit is you have a nice venue that people come from surrounding towns. They get to enjoy our town and also pay money in towards a business that then funnels money back into our taxes and revenue. So if they are successful, it helps our town to be successful. If we are anti those situations and come off that way, businesses will move elsewhere. So in the case of Sawchuck Farm, where there were issues with the parking on the street and so forth, and some is that's sometimes out of the control of the person who's the purveyor.
Kim, you said you had a follow-up? Well, there was just a second part, which, thank you for your answers. What has the Board of Selectmen done recently that you would have done, I mean, particular to the things you've mentioned? What has the board done that you would take us in a different direction? You would not have done what they did.
The biggest one, honestly, is I think that that current bylaw about the parking is very wide-reaching as far as what it is and being specific. Does it have to be addressed that way? And this is where I would take issue to that. Some of the smaller businesses in town that are limited on their parking based upon the footprint that have been in existence for many, many years, all of a sudden to impose something like that is a little hard to take. You know? So if we have those type of parking situations, something like that would have to be addressed in how we look at it and going forward. I think that's one of the things I've seen is the bylaw. One of those ones was the parking issue.
Yeah. Most bylaws are not retroactive, so.
Right. But like I said, as far as what that goes going forward, are we kind of going against some of the, for lack of a better term, mom and pop places in town? Are we going against some of the people who've been doing things for years like that? I would think that would be a shame, you know, if that's the direction that bylaw takes. If it does, you know, that remains to be seen. But when you send out a wide-reaching thing like that, even if it is not retroactive, what are you saying to some of the other places here? Because again, we're not set up for a big business, so.
So I guess we're lucky that town meeting actually votes on those bylaws that,
Yeah.
because the selectmen don't really decide that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I guess, all right. And Christine, I know you've got an opinion. I'd love to hear it.
Well,
What's been going on?
we created the bylaw review committee so that the bylaws were always relevant to what's happening, because years ago that wasn't necessarily the case. And we were always trying to kind of, put your finger in the dam trying to stop things rather than being proactive. And it's a mindset of being proactive and being prepared for things that are happening now, so that we always have, the town is always prepared and is protected as much as we can to try to maintain our rural character. I mean, that's what we're all trying to do. So that's been a great task undertaken by a very dedicated group who go through and read the bylaws word by word to keep them updated and relevant. And as you said, it goes to town meeting. And if people don't agree with the changes they're proposing, that's your chance to voice your opinion and vote against it. I think that we've also, to talk about business, we are business friendly, but it has to be the right business and it has to be in the right zone. When someone is trying to put in a business that is in an area that it's not allowed, then we need to let them know real quick and in a hurry before they spend a lot of money and then are coming back to us saying, you were wishy-washy, we didn't know that it wasn't allowed. And I've spent all this money, and now I'm going to sue you because I think your decision is arbitrary. It's important that we handle these applications as they come in quickly, concisely, and they are defensible, that we are looking at the bylaws, we're looking at all the relative documents, we're making quality informed decisions that are clear and are letting the applicant know that it is, you can do this or you can't, and this is why. So we did have an interesting application, gosh, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, for a marijuana grow facility. And it was in the industrial park where it's allowed. So it was, we were pretty excited about the idea of having some new business in town. We're always looking for new tax revenue. And we went through the plan with a fine-tooth comb. We made sure that we had changes to the plan so that the abutters were protected from the noise, from the odor, that the water was being recycled. So it's important to go through and you know, look at these things, make sure they're a good fit for the town, and then if they are, then we support it and say, yay, you know, come to town, do business in Plympton. We'd love to have you here, but it has to be the right business in the right area per the bylaws.
Becky Archambault, 20 Colts Farm. So as I think everyone knows, we had a fatality in town this year from this parking area or this driveway area here. Just this morning I was pulling into the library and someone in a PA Landers truck was screaming profanities outside his window because there was 3 different people trying to make turns in this area. I guess for Christine, like, are there talks of doing something with these driveways? I know we're talking about a new fire station, but in the short term, this is very dangerous. Main Street, the library, the fire department, and the town hall, all in this little tiny hairpin turn. So I guess, is there any talks about doing something? And for Dana, like, what would you propose to do there?
There is, and I would recommend you stay after this forum because the Town Properties Committee is going to be doing a presentation on the new fire station, which includes an entire rework of this whole parking lot. It is dangerous. It's, I mean, we've tried to put up reflective guides because it's difficult for people to see at night to even turn in the right driveway. It's not an easy parking lot to navigate, and we are trying to make it better and safer. But the plan that they have put together that is part of the fire station project would address the parking issues in this parking lot.
How much longer though? I mean,
well, there is an article on the warrant to fund putting together all of the bid documents and getting this all out to bid so that when we come to town meeting next year, we have a firm number as to what it's going to look like to do some of this work. I'm not sure if the reconfiguration of the parking lot would happen immediately. I can ask at the meeting. I'm just not sure if that would be addressed immediately, but then town meeting next year, my guess would be that we are going to have a firm number as to what it's going to cost to build a new fire station and address some of the safety needs in the parking lot so that people can decide if they want to spend their tax dollars to fund that.
Because this is the state.
Yes.
Dana, do you have a response?
It's basically the same thing. I mean, there's only certain things you can do with it. I mean, as far as what's been done safety-wise, one of my ideas is, especially where the police department is, we have a rock wall that has been there for many, many years, and it makes it very difficult trying to get that vehicle up. Even the person coming up from, say, the Halifax end, it's difficult to see that vehicle coming out of there. One of the police departments, actually Quincy, I believe it is, actually had that section of road painted blue, so it would slow people down, so that they know where that was. So anything that heightens the awareness is definitely going to help as far as, visibility, actually on the corner where my daughter was actually in an accident at Center Street and Palmer Road. Now that area has been cleared on that corner, which I believe Mr. Bloomquist owns, which thank you for clearing it. But as far as that goes, more visibility. I mean, it's definitely one of those things. And people slowing down. I mean, we have had enhanced traffic enforcement as far as the police side of things. And it's 30 miles per hour through that area where people should be slowing down. But again, it's a T intersection. It is a very busy intersection, especially coming to and from the school and so forth. So, and it is a state road. So you got a couple of different situations there as well. But visibility at this point, signs, more warning. I mean, we put out the signs, the town put out the signs about the trucks with their, braking and everything else. And then they went from a green sign to a yellow sign. And is it making a difference? Kind of hard to tell at this point, statistically.
Somebody else new first?
Hi, I'm Carolyn DeCristofano, and I live at 198 Main Street. And Dana, I guess I want to say a couple of things before I ask a question. And one is I admire your desire to go from retirement right into public service. And, I know very little about you, never had kids in the school. And I trust that you care deeply about the town. But a little while ago, when we were talking about one of the answers to the questions, you said, you have to start somewhere. Christine was a rookie in the past, and all of that. And so my question is more about, why did you choose to start with selectmen, which has a broad kind of oversight, but not a lot of direct influence. I think power is probably the word, but not a lot of direct control over the things that happen in town. Although I think a lot of people believe that selectmen kind of sit as a triumvirate and say this is the way things are going to be. And your interest seems to be very geared towards economic development and achieving financial stability and budget. Well, we have financial stability right now. So, traditionally, finance committee is a place where people tend to start, or school committee, which I know Christine was on, planning. These are roles in the town that kind of cut across a lot of different areas and yet give enough focus so you can learn more about how work gets done. I know when I joined the planning board years ago, it was almost on a whim. I was upset with something that I had seen at town meeting. And, it was naive of me to think I was going to sweep in and change how things were done. So, what thought did you give to filling one of those roles, or even just stepping forward from one of the many unfilled positions that we usually have come to this time of year?
Okay, so basically, as far as public service, it's both. So my idea in doing this was, as far as going forward, if I was going to do this, instead of being on one thing, I wanted to try to be involved in all of the government. And that's pretty much where I came from as far as going as selectman's position, you know. And having known the town and being involved in the town as long as I have been, and known as many people as I have that have encouraged me to do so as well. And very few people that I know that actually live in town that are supporting my run for this position have actually said anything like what you just said as far as going for a smaller position or otherwise. And they felt that in the case of my situation and my love for this town and my commitment to this town for over 20 years, plus living in town for 24 years, and knowing a lot of how the town works, even doing it through the school, because the school actually has a lot to do with the town. It's the highest budget in the town, and I work very closely with the principal as well. So in that respect, that's kind of where my thought process went on this. And again, it was also my decision to make it that way, but I've been asked to fulfill this position for many years by many people in town, and I had that support. So I understand where you're going with that. I understand where your concerns are with that, and I've heard those concerns, but that's pretty much where my thought process comes from, and this is where I came from. That decision is personal, but also from the community at large. And my view is that the best way to make a difference would be to be in this seat.
Yeah. So thank you for that answer. And this is a hard question for me to ask, and so I've been debating on whether to ask it, but we might as well get it out. It's not fact-based because I know nothing about this, but I have heard that there are perhaps specific concerns that sort of led you to decide to run, and one of those may be about that entire vetting process and how department people are hired. And so I'd just like to know what you have to say, like to what extent did past events that you may have disagreed with or decisions that you may have disagreed with influence your decision to come to this candidacy, and what would you do differently?
Okay, thank you for the question. So obviously, many decisions lead to a decision to make some kind of a life-changing position. You know, this is obviously going to impact my family and my life and everything else too, so it's not an easy decision to make. So having the backing of my wife and my family changed a lot with that too. As far as particular concerns, I'm concerned with a lot of things. You know, I'm concerned with how things are done. I am concerned with how things are made as decisions. And as far as any particular decision, one way or the other, it can't be just one. That'd be ridiculous to say that there's absolutely one reason and only one reason that I would be doing this for. And that makes no sense. So as far as my decision in taking this on, yeah, absolutely. I'd be concerned about how people are chosen and how people are actually, you know, put in their positions all around, you know, regardless of where they are, and having the best position for the town and in the best interest of the town. So when you have people on a board for a very long period of time, they know a lot more people. But sometimes, like is being said with me, some people don't know me. Some people don't know some of the select board as well, even though they haven't been here for a very long time. So in that respect, a particular decision on why I did it, I think I've been very well spoken as far as why I chose this.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody new?
Yeah.
New questions?
Hi, Joe Colonino, 41 Prospect Road. You're both very nice people. You really are. And it's unfortunate that you have to be running against each other, but somebody has to. Christine, it's a little bit more directed towards you, please. You know, you say that you're a dissenting voice, or you're a private thinker, an independent thinker. But I looked at the warrant this year. It's all 3-0, 4-0, all down the list. There has to be somebody who can be able to dissent on some of these opinions in order to make the town run a little bit more functionally. I just don't think a Board of Selectmen should be 3-0 consistently. And also, in past years, there's been a few things, and I actually stopped and spoke to the town administrator about it. You know, some of the salary arrangements are they're unusual. Yeah. For instance, it bothers me when I see a department head getting 12% and I see one of the workers getting 3%. Pardon me?
Contracts.
It's not contracts. It's wage and personnel for some, and other for.
Okay, let's get
Yeah.
the question for.
Yeah, well, she asked me, it was directed towards me, so she interrupted me. I just,
Could you speak a little louder to the people?
you can't hear me? I'm sorry.
The mic is for the recording, not for.
Oh, it's not for amplification? Oh. Well, that's really all I have to say. I mean, the representation seems lacking. When I see 3040 on that warrant all the time, straight down the board, it troubles me. That's all I have to say. Do you have anything?
Sure. There are times that we don't agree, but there are a lot of times that we do agree. And for me, a good idea is a good idea, and I don't care who proposes it. So I don't think I need to be a dissenting voice just to be a dissenter. If I agree with what's being proposed, I'm going to agree with it. If I don't agree with it, I'm not. So
You mean in all those warrants?
yeah, in all those warrants.
Nobody had a dissenting voice at all. Well, they've been there one.
Joe, it's there's so much, that is such a long process to get to the point where we actually are voting on the warrants, where there's been so much vetting and discussion about the warrants. There are a lot of articles that they make sense for the town. So we have a business to run here. The town is a business, and we can't just put our heads in the sand and pretend that there isn't needs that have to be addressed.
And I understand that, Christine. But for the average guy, if he pays attention and looks at that warrant and sees nobody is saying no, the Finance Committee isn't saying no, and the Board of Selectmen isn't saying no to anything.
I think if you went back a couple of years, you would see that there are some votes that we don't all agree on.
Well, I would hope so.
There are. But this time we happen to all agree.
Like I said, I like you both very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, we have another new one, and I'm going to remind you all to please contain your comments. If you have a question, address it to me or through me to the candidates.
Thank you.
John Williamson, 255 Main Street. Good to see you both, and thank you for taking the time to do this, especially on a Saturday morning. Just one real quick question. We added a full-time school resource officer position up at the that's up at the Dennett last year. I would just like both candidates to speak to that and their support of it, and any thoughts they have.
Okay. Do you want to go first? Why don't you go first this time?
Fair enough. Well, having been the first actual certified SRO at that school on a part-time basis, it's hard not to support somebody being in that school for the amount of time that they are. School safety has been my #1 priority for the last 13 years in that school. How that actually gets envisioned and how it's actually taken and put into place is really a situation where, like I said, I was there for 13 years and will be finishing up there this June. Having an SRO in a school where you have 253 kids, it's a challenging job to keep yourself busy there. Like I said, I spend 6 hours, 7 hours a day in that school, and I spend a lot of time outside of the school working on different projects that are not billed to the town, and do those things in a very reasonable amount of time. Having somebody in the school all those hours, you can't argue that point. It's painting yourself into a corner as far as what it is. Obviously, anybody who's going to say that you don't want a police officer there to protect our kids, you're not going to look good saying that, obviously. And do I support the police being in the school? I've been in the school. I'm a police officer, so of course I'm going to support that. How that looks going forward and how much involvement and how many hours that needs to be and how it actually manifests itself, that's above my pay grade as far as where I am right now, even in the police department. So I can't speak towards that. That's a managerial decision as how that is handled and how those hours are spent and how those hours are spent outside of the school or responding to calls or anything else like that. I do know from personal experience, having been involved with juvenile policing for many years, in a lot of police departments, the SRO actually goes out of the school and then handles calls as well as that. So there are other creative ways of dealing with that, but having police in the school, 100%. I mean, I just spent 13 years of my career doing that. And prior to me, we had Dennis Reddy for many years as the DARE officer, who was there one time a week. He was also a part-time police officer, as I am. So as far as school safety, yes, absolutely having the officers there. Over the years, have we had officers come in during the time when I was there and also on their regular day shift to patrol the school and get familiar with it? I think there's a lot of merit to that, too. You know, the other officers as opposed to just me. In fact, when I took the position, that's what I told Pat Dillon, who was the chief at the time, it can't be just me because I'm not here enough. And I encouraged those officers to go in on those opposite days when I was not actually in the school in order to actually know the layout of the school, that God forbid there was even a medical there, that they knew which hall to go down and where it was and be familiar with their camera system and everything else we've done in that school. So as far as the SRO program, yes, I would have to back that.
The SRO program, for those that don't know, it after an unfortunate school shooting, which they are all horrible, but I think it was the one in Texas in particular. The Dennett parents went to Peter Benito and they said, we need a school resource officer here. That we want that. It needs to happen. Peter then took it to the school committee. The school committee agreed that we needed to have a school resource officer. The school committee then brought it to the town in a warrant article. So what we wanted to do was do a warrant article to fund the school resource officer as a standalone item so that people could decide if this is what they wanted to do rather than to bury it in the police budget. So they needed to know what the cost of it was and be crystal clear. And there was overwhelming support for the school resource officer, having somebody there every day while school's in session. So made it happen. The chief's done an amazing job. He's got 2 people that are lined up. They're already doing the necessary training to take over the SRO role for this coming school year. So where it was, the town wants it. It is now part of the police budget, but it will be part of what we offer at the school because it's what the residents wanted. It's what we wanted. We wanted everybody to feel safe, students and staff at the Dennett. We've also used ARPA funds. Dana's talked a lot about safety upgrades. I was on the phone with Liz the morning following that shooting. We were talking with Chief Clancy or Chief Matt, about safety upgrades we needed to have at the Dennett because that could never happen here. So we've used ARPA funds to fund these, which is grant money, to pay for these important safety upgrades for the students and staff at the Dennett. So we've got the SRO and we've made safety upgrades to help protect the Dennett.
Thank you. I want to be wrapping this up pretty soon. I've got 2 repeat questioners here. Anybody else new want to ask a question? Yes.
Michael Gagnon, 33 Colchester Street. I have a question for you, Christine. In regard to, I believe, earlier in this whole forum, you spoke about professionalization and how that was important in the town of Plympton. To my knowledge, when we chose, or when you chose, rather, with the selectmen, to hire the current police chief, there was a process that took place where we hired an outside outfit, I believe. Is that correct?
Right, we have a consultant.
Consultant, okay. And were there certain requirements for that position?
There were requirements, and it was all published in the ad that what we were looking for.
And did the Board of Selectmen, was that a 3-0 vote for that particular situation too? Or was that kind of on the fence?
We tweaked the, what the consultant had come up with because we wanted internal candidates to be able to apply for the position.
You mean tweak?
We,
elaborate?
Originally it was asking for a certain level of education and a certain level of experience, but we always have wanted to try to promote from within. It's better from the department for team building to when you can to promote from within. So we wanted the language of the ad to allow internal candidates to apply for the position.
Second question, if you would. So that decision was made. The current chief is in that position. Big shoes to fill. I'm sure it's very, very difficult to run a police department. I am a lowly police officer myself. I don't run a department. However, is there any particular reason now that we've agreed to one school resource officer, now we have a second one coming up?
They're splitting it. They are. It's the same funding. They're splitting the assignment. The chief felt that it was a better way to manage it, was to have a couple different officers in there. So there's more exposure for the kids with 2 officers rather than just one. They're not going to be there at the same time. They're going to be there different days. They're going to be sharing the position. And I agree. I think it's a great plan. It keeps them on the road and doing patrol work and doing and keeping active in the department and not just the school resource officer. So that I think for them that it keeps them involved in the department, and I think that's a benefit to the to having them at the school as well. Is that they're not just exclusively working at the school; they're also working in the community.
So you're saying that a school resource officer that is trained with our taxpayer money, and listen, my kids go to that school. I want a police officer in that school as well. I'm not against that idea. Mm-hmm. However, I don't want to put more funding towards something that is over the top to have way too much exposure, way too much police presence down there when we could use them on calls or directing traffic, stopping cars, doing their job outside of the school. When you answered that question, you were saying that would give them more of an opportunity to be on the street and be in the school. I'm confused because if we're paying for school resource officers, their job is to be in that school. Mm-hmm. The whole time the kids are in the school, mm-hmm. Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm. That's it. They're not there on weekends. Mm-hmm. So why do we have 2 of them?
They're splitting the shift. It's a 5-day shift. It's 3 and 2. Is my guess, okay. But it's splitting between several officers, and it's just in the best interest of the officers to keep them engaged in the community and also be at the school. So they're both going to be trained. They, as SROs, they're both going to be very effective. I think they're going to bring different things to the table, which is going to be great for the kids.
Okay, my last question, I'll give the microphone back. According to the warrant, I think it's called, that everyone got, I believe the police department's salary went up 20% or over 20%, somewhere around there, for personnel. Was it 22%, sir? 22%? I was on the department when there were 9 of us. I don't know how many there are now exactly, off the top of my head. Unanimous decision to increase the salary to that mm-hmm. degree? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me why?
I can absolutely tell you why, because for their own safety, we need 2 officers on it at all times. And that budget reflects 2 officers on 24/7. And it's for their own safety. You're in law enforcement. We have the same things happen here that happen in the larger communities. We just have fewer people to deal with it. So for their own safety, we need 2 officers on at all times.
So there weren't 2 officers on before this. This is a
That's
new
correct.
thing.
That is correct.
Because I know for a fact when I got on in 2013, it was just me. I protected you guys on the overnights, in case you're wondering. So we haven't had 2 people on.
That's correct.
Shift.
It's been the goal to get here, but it is a large expense, and it's been phased in.
Okay. All right. Thank you for answering the question. Yeah, here you are, sir.
Andrew Norton, 59 Mayflower. And as a precursor, I am on the fire department. But I'm curious, fire department and the police department run the exact same shift strengths. Why is the salaries in the police department so much higher than the fire department? $400,000 more.
You have completely different jobs that you do.
But
and
it's the shift. It's the same shift strength.
it's the same shift, but we've got people in the fire department that are just here for the ambulance, 2 on, 24/7. And then with the police officers, it's apples and oranges. You're comparing 2 different departments in public safety who have 2 very different roles. And you may not, you're comparing apples and oranges.
What do you mean by that?
Because you've got completely different roles that you serve in the town.
What does that have to do with the salaries?
I think the level of training maybe is different. You can't expect, I don't think it's reasonable to expect everybody to make the same amount of money when your jobs are different.
Well, I'm not saying that. My point is it's the exact same shift strength.
Right, but it's not the same job, Andrew. It's not the same job.
So you're saying that because it's different jobs, they should get paid more?
Because it's a different job, they're getting paid more.
Okay. All right. You realize that paramedics have to go 3 years of school, correct?
Yeah, and I think paramedics have a pretty high rate of pay as well. I mean, I can look at this with you, Andrew, and I'd be happy to talk about it offline.
I just don't understand.
Okay, well, we can get together and talk about it. I'd be happy to meet you in the station.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's me again, Nancy Curtin, 88 Upland Road. And my question is going to be for Christine. Christine, I read in an article in the Halifax Express that you had mentioned the fact that the town warrant was going to be eliminated and given out at the actual town meeting because of expense. I kind of, on my own, I checked into what it would be for 289 residences here in the town for the town warrant, and comes about to about $400 and some odd, $409.71, I believe, at 19 cents. Why? This was an article that was headlined "Meeting Prep." Was the meeting prep the Board of Selectmen prep, or was it for the town warrant?
It actually wasn't our decision to not mail out the warrant, but we did ask to have it mailed out. So it was a decision that the Finance Committee had made not to mail out the warrant to save some money, and it was going to be available online. But Mark Russo wanted, specifically, was very concerned about residents not receiving the warrant when there wasn't really any prep about it to tell you that you wouldn't be receiving a warrant this year. So we agreed with him that that it needed to be mailed out. So that's why the warrant was.
And that will happen in the future?
That will happen in the future. I think more discussion may come in the future about mailing it out, but I think that there'll be discussion about it first without just having it happen.
Okay, because you will look at the MGL laws, right? As far as, and the municipal?
Absolutely.
As far as FinCom responsibilities?
Absolutely.
Okay, and select board? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve Silva, 24 Pope's Farm again. Just for Christine, 2 quick points, if I might. Just a point of clarification. Becky, my neighbor, asked a question about the parking lot earlier. I just want to make sure if I heard you correctly or not. The plans that are, or the engineering plans coming up that we're talking about on the upcoming town meeting for the new fire station, that absolutely includes the reconfiguration of this lot as part of that
That
plan?
I need to confirm. We'll check with John. I guess it doesn't.
He's
So
shaking
it's
his head
not
no.
being, it is
So
not being.
you misspoke earlier then?
I did misspeak
okay, that's
earlier.
Cool. And then from a personal perspective, okay, I'm sorry, I found it a little bit insulting, your answer to Captain Norton. As a firefighter, paramedic with over 40 years experience, your argument of apples and oranges could not be more incorrect. And I'll tell you why, because not only am I coming from the vantage point of 40 plus years experience in emergency services, I'm also a former fire chief, and I know how things work in this town. I am also the lead instructor for the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, where I go all over the state and New England teaching incident command and leadership programs. So, for you to say that you're quantifying the worth of one public safety officer over another on a monetary value is wrong and insulting. Your chief has a master's degree. Captain Norton has a Juris Doctorate. We are educated, well-trained, not because necessarily we want to be, although we do. We're mandated, no different than they're mandated over there. So the question that the captain posed to you, I thought was a rather simple question, and I have asked it in the past myself. You don't have to answer it today. I just want it out on the floor. There's a $400,000 difference between the two payrolls for a very similar, if not identical, staffing pattern for people equally dedicated, equally trained, and also have the mandate by state and some federal law to update and continue the training, whether it's red or it's blue. It doesn't matter. So I reject your answer on that, and respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. No, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
Gene Freeze, 60 Prospect Road. Getting back to Joe Colanino's The Warrant, is it fiscally responsible for every single item on that warrant to be increased and every single member of the Board of Selectmen to go along with it? I just don't understand. I didn't know if it was a rule you all had to agree to get it on the warrant.
No.
But I cannot believe there was not any dissent on any of those amounts.
So are you talking about the budget lines?
The entire, every single item on the budget line, yes.
Well, I can only speak for myself that that I thought that everything was needed and needed to go to town meeting vote.
Okay, thank you.
Kim Russo, 140 Palmer Road. This question is for both of you, but it's actually asking you, Mr. Smith, if you could just answer, because this is confusing to me, about the police budget as opposed to the fire budget. The way I understand town works is you all come with your budgets to finance and you ask for what you want. So how does that work? And then the next is with the last question. If you were to sit on the board with two other people and you did disagree with, say, something to get on the warrant, what would your dissent vote do to further what you really wanted? I mean, how is that going to further what you think? And back to, I'm sorry, I got here back to your very first question, which I always agree with, is you go to the grocery every single day, milk never cost a penny less. Never, never. Prices go up. Our town, to me, is no different, and I would think, surely you know that, you run a business. So if you could just elaborate on those couple of things, I'd like to hear what you have to say there.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. So, as far as a dissenting vote, that's our democratic process.
Okay.
So, when you have three people, you're obviously in that situation so that you don't always have a deadlock, and that's part of the reason. But in order to, whatever you're trying to say as far as further an agenda, for lack of a better term, you dissent for the reasons that you believe in. So if you believe that there's a dissension between certain things, you brought up the budget. I'm not the chief of police, I'm not the fire chief. I don't deal with those budgets as far as deciding what we ask for and everything else. So those are decisions above my pay level at this stage of the game. So therefore, as far as what that is perverse, the discrepancies and so forth, that definitely has to be addressed. I mean, if you heard the concerns on the red side of the table here, they're pretty legit concerns. And as far as working with those professionals, personally, I have the utmost respect for the jobs that they do, and they do things that are definitely different than what we do on the other side. But we are both public servants. We are both doing a job that we work together on, and in fact, both the fire and the police have worked very well together for many years. And as a partnership, we do a similar job. There's a reason why there's a difference. There are different aspects to it. We're called first responders. We're going to give first aid. But we're not qualified to run the ambulance. We're not qualified to make assessments on patients. We're not allowed to do certain things. Same as they're not allowed to make arrests. So there are differences between the two jobs, but a lot of this stuff blends together. So as far as to go back to your dissension remark, there has to be dissension, okay? This is why we're here. And this is why when you make that, yes, okay. So if you did have a 2-to-1 vote, yes, that agenda doesn't actually go forward. However, I would hope that 2 other people would look at it and say, gee, why is he saying no, right? And it opens it to discussion, as we're having here, as a community, as a town. And that's like when I made the comment about competition. You know, this is why we're here. There's a reason, and we have to have those type of things go on, you know? When it comes to the Finance Committee, that's their domain in order to make some of these decisions. They are the ones who are going to be getting those requests originally, and it's their job to actually look at them and say, hey, is this reasonable? Is this within our budget? Is this something that's, you know, been done in the past? How have we staffed these 2 departments in the past? How have we made it happen? What are our desires to move forward? And on the fire side, you know, do we need more ambulance staffing? Do we need to have more firefighters on duty? So all those things are in flux. And absolutely, when you say about the fact that prices go up, it is absolutely true that when Samuel Cole Wright, our Medal of Honor recipient that pretty much very few people in this town, but I know you do know that because I did a presentation on him, okay, from the 1860s, I'm thinking that milk was probably bartered for back then. So yes, prices go up, that's economy.
And did you have a follow-up for that? Are you done? I can't make myself understood about the dissent thing, so I guess maybe I will leave it. Well, I guess I'm not. It was just a larger question as how sometimes agreeing to put the question to town meeting and saying, okay, we want this to happen so you all can decide, is different than saying, no, I'm not going to take any part of that. And I just wondered how, you know, I think this job could be pretty frustrating. And so it's really more about how dealing with people. You've dealt with policemen and for years, so I'm sure you're pretty good at that.
Okay, thank you. You want me to answer?
Quick. Yes, please. I do.
So, while police and fire, they, I think, I absolutely appreciate the job you do, Andrew, and the whole department. The budget that is shown on your warrant, that was what was submitted by your chief. That's what she needed to manage her department. The larger number is what was provided by the police chief. That's what he needs to manage his department. So there is discrepancy there because that's what the people are saying that manage the people day to day, the difference in the dollar value. I'm not saying anybody's job is more important than the other. We have a great team here, and I hope that we continue to have a great team with police and fire working together. But the numbers that are on your warrant, those were provided by your chief in working through Finance Committee and talking about what they needed to run their departments. So that's where those numbers come from. And so that's my answer.
I understand that, but what I don't understand is why somebody didn't dig down further and ask that question and look into that.
You know, I would love to look into that, and I will, Andrew. I will look into that. I know, police use deadly force, or they're authorized to use deadly force. They have they carry a firearm. They're getting into different situations than you are. Is anybody more valuable than the other? No. You all have an important job, a role to play in the town. We all do. Everybody has an important role to play in the town. And I would have to take a deeper dive into this to look at the discrepancy. You guys do have your first...
My further point is, I'm not saying that we can't get by on our current budget. What mystifies me is why the PD can't get by on a similar budget.
Okay.
That's good.
David Smith, 88 Upland Road. As a matter of disclosure, this is my brother. I have a very serious question. I've read the warrant, I read it every year, and I hope it keeps coming to us in the mail, because that's how we all find out what's going on. When I look at the police department line item budget from 2 years ago, it was $1.1 million. For some reason, it has now grown to $1.6 million. That's almost a 50% increase. And my question, I guess, is, have we had that much of an increase in crime, violent crime in town? I mean, if we're pulling people over for a tail light out, wouldn't we be better off hiring Steve Craig to fix the taillights on the town's tab? It doesn't make any sense to me. What is $500,000 more police work getting us? I mean, is there violent crime? When you look at New York and Chicago, they have more homicides now than they've ever had. And what's happened? Their police budgets have been slashed. What's going on in Plympton? Please.
Sure. We have gotten 2 officers on 24/7. We've also funded the SRO position because the town asked for that. So that's increased the budget as well. So these with salary increases, we have contracts with the police like we do with the fire now as well. We've got our first contract with them. So, yeah, we've got obligations, and as a result, there was an increase in the budget.
Can I have a follow-up on that?
Briefly, please.
I'll try and be very brief. I see $500,000 as a line item in the budget, and I'm going to assume that that $500,000 isn't just for this year. It's not a debt exclusion. It's something that's going to haunt us forever. But when you hire more people, there's more of a cost than just what we write them in a paycheck. The carryover is also, it's going to be on the medical and the pension. And those numbers are something that you and you and you and me are going to be paying from now on.
Again, I need to
How
ask the
much
question.
more can we sustain in that budget? It doesn't show up. The $500,000 is in the police budget, but you've got pension and you've got medical costs, insurances, and things. I don't see it sustainable. How can we handle this?
Well, it's the great thing is this all goes to town meeting, and if you
Trust me, I'm going to bring it
perfect, that's the perfect spot for you to do it. That's the perfect spot.
I really want to wrap this up.
Just one quick question. Actually, point of clarification again, I suppose. Steve Silva, 24 Pope's Farm, for candidate Smith, and also for candidate Joy. So we seem to have locked into this budget battle, if you will, between red and blue, which is unfortunate. However, you made an interesting point that I think Trooper Gagnon kind of expounded on about the staffing pattern of the police department. You know, I'm sitting here saying it's a similar pattern, but I'm not a police officer. So if I could then ask, and I'm probably putting you on the spot, sir, what does an average day shift, evening, or overnight shift look like for Plympton Police as far as number of personnel that are either assigned to a shift or are doing administrative duties?
Thank you for the question. Currently, we have a 4-and-2 rotation, which means 4 days on, 2 days off, and then obviously comp days, vacation days, training days, and that's for the regular staffing of the department. We also have a lieutenant who works a 9-to-5 schedule Monday through Friday. The chief is in during that time period as well. Both are on call. We have 3 sergeants now. 1 is deployed, but we also have a new sergeant, Sergeant Valente, who's just promoted. He was one of our SROs at the school for a while as well. And we also have Sergeant Brower. So when we have those officers on, you would often have, with a sergeant, you would also have a patrol officer and possibly 2. So we would have a sergeant, a lieutenant, and possibly 2 patrolmen on duty at the time, plus the chief, who would be in the thing. So
5 people, not 2.
So,
is that correct?
right. So if we have, then on top of that, you'd have a SRO in the school. So that's Monday through Friday. So you have an SRO in the school. So you could have, theoretically, yes, you could have up to 6 officers. So you have the SRO, you'd have Plympton's. It is.
All right, thank you. Let's wrap this up. I'm going to give the candidates a chance to ask their opponent one question. No gloves. Dana, you want to start?
Oh, I'm going to give it to Christine.
Okay.
So you can ask
Oh,
me the
you're
question.
giving, I thought you were going to give me the question.
I'm not giving it to you. She said take the gloves off, but I'm not going to give it.
Oh, no. So my question for you would be in your response to the candidates' questions that were in the Plympton Halifax Express yesterday. You talked about infrastructure, and I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that.
Excellent. It's okay. As far as infrastructure, I did mention that, and I think that that is something we have to look at, and this is one of the things that comes down to budgets, where if budgets are actually moved around, it then eliminates some of that funding, and we definitely have some serious road issues as far as how they're paved. I mean, Ring Road, like I mentioned before, is actually not wide enough in a lot of cases. If you're going, anybody who's gone to the transfer station knows that if you're coming in around that corner and somebody else is coming, and we've had a few accidents there. So infrastructure is definitely, as far as that goes, is really roads is what I'm talking about. As part of that also, we're talking about repurposing the fire station as well. So that's definitely a concern as well. And taking some of the assets that we have in town to repurpose them. We have that barn that's out on Center Street that the town owns as well. So then you have to look at some of these buildings that are in kind of rough repair, to look at those, to take care of them as well. Because if they can still be utilized, they should be. You know, if it gets to the point like we were talking about retrofitting and trying to make the old fire station into a new fire station, that's going to be kind of an issue. So that's pretty much where I'm going with infrastructure as far as what we have and what we have to take care of. You know, I can see that we're working on the building over here, which I spent quite a few years in, and the boards and so forth on the floors were in rough shape. And it was originally a school, so we were just having a discussion before that this used to be a stage. So we've done pretty well in this town as far as repurposing things, but we got to do it fiscally, responsibly, and safe. You know, I mean, the safety of the actual building itself. I mean, I just was informed that somebody kind of fell through one part of the roof in here. So that's a little bit concerning.
Great, thank you.
All right. So for you, Christine, my question would be is that I've seen, obviously, you've had a tremendous amount of experience over these years as a selectwoman, and I thank you for your service. As far as your tenure, where do you see yourself in 5 years as far as being, or 3 years, or 6 years? You know, where do you see yourself as far as this particular position goes, should you retain it going forward?
All right. I would like this to be my last term. I am a firm believer in term limits. I think that it's healthy to get new people in. I think that I love your interest. I would I would suggest maybe another committee, which has been suggested as well, because then I think when you come into this position, you're better prepared rather than having to learn everything from the bottom up, that you've got a good idea of how things work. So for me, this is going to be my last term. I want to focus on, I'm newly retired. I've been working full-time and doing this job, and I feel like I'm in a position now where I've got more time to really delve into some of the issues that have been important to me for a long time, and that's looking to help seniors with different programs. And it's not just seniors. There are a lot of people that are struggling in town, and I'd like to find ways to help them, whether it's with mental health or food insecurities or financial. I think that we have a responsibility as a community to be a village and to help one another. And I'd like to take a deeper dive in to that as well. And then the last thing that I really want to do is been working with Solar REIT on some retired bogs over off Upland Road. They were formerly Jeff Smith's bogs, about creating a public-private partnership. We've heard complaints, no, they've left the room, but about people that want to get out and walk and want to have a safe place to walk, because people travel our roads, even with the traffic enforcement, too quickly, and it's not as safe. To have a safe, flat surface for people to get out and walk their dogs or to walk themselves, just to get out and get some fresh air and some exercise. I'm hoping to wrap up this partnership as well to offer that.
Thank you. So I kind of feel like you guys just gave a wrap up, but you may have more time for wrap ups if you want it.
I think I'm good.
I think I'm good. Thank you all for coming.
And for anybody who's interested, Town Properties Chair John Williamson will present on the town complex, the fire station project. There's a whiteboard presentation here, and that's where you would learn about the possible reconfiguration, what's going on with the station, what the committee has done and will do. It was what